For 40 years, the Supreme Court has imposed a policy of Chevron deference on itself. This policy requires that judges at the federal level grant deference to the views of line agencies that administer federal priorities. Today's lunch alert is sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group. The stock market right now looks dangerously similar to 2000 and 2008 in the dot-com bubble. So, for example, even though the nexus between the original Clean Air and Clean Water Acts and the current extreme environmental regulations passed by the EPA is very thin, the courts are obliged to respect it and not to impose their own judgment, no matter how tenuous the nexus between statute and regulation is. This is probably the single most important ingredient of the deep state because it essentially handcuffs the judiciary from imposing any constraint on the federal bureaucracy. It's a license for the deep state to invent whatever policies it wants. For example, the original Clean Air Act passed in 1970 sanctions pollution, such as sulfur dioxide, nitrous oxide, and carbon emissions. But it says nothing about carbon dioxide, the naturally occurring gas that we all breathe out. The federal courts have allowed the EPA to regulate carbon dioxide and all manner of industrial activity, even though this regulation was neither envisaged nor sanctioned in the Clean Air Act that was passed by Congress in the early 1970s. An entire structure of regulatory do's and don'ts has come up around this decision to regulate carbon dioxide. It's time for the federal courts to regain the power to check the actions of administrative agencies and be sure that anything they're doing is authorized by a law passed by Congress and signed by the president, not simply dreamed up by a bureaucrat in search of a cause. This case has just been argued before the court, and a decision is expected by the end of the term. And no other case can possibly have the implications for the deep state and the administrative dictatorship in our country as this case. Today's lunch alert is sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group. The stock market right now looks dangerously similar to 2000 and 2008 in the dot-com bubble. Those years, euphoria gripped the stock market as everyone rushed to exploit the bubble before it crashed. Meanwhile, the constants are clear. Inflation is above 3%. And at 3.4% inflation over 20 years, the value of the dollar is cut in half. And over 40 years, it's cut by 75%. Meanwhile, gold has gone up 10 times since 2000. So call the Patriot Gold Group. The Patriot Gold Group offers no fee for life IRAs to viewers of these videos, and that extended that offer and lowered the minimum required to get in. So call the Patriot Gold Group and ask about the no fee for life IRA. Stay well, and thank you.